She was just the maid's daughter, invisible, ignored, and forgotten. But one summer afternoon, when the sea turned against the billionaire heir, it was this girl, the one no one saw, who risked everything to save him. He survived, but he never knew who the woman was who gave him his life back. Until, while trying to reward her heroine, the billionaire discovered a secret, which would destroy everything she believed about love, loyalty, and blood. What would happen if the most powerful man found out that the woman who saved his son was the daughter he tried to erase from the world?
The sound of the sea was the only living thing in the Faraz mansion that morning. The large windows reflected the blue of the sky, but within the marble walls, silence reigned. Clara walked through the corridors with light steps, balancing a silver tray. She was the maid's daughter, but she had grown up there, invisible amidst the echoes of luxury and distance. She knew the rhythm of every clock in the house, the tone of her boss's voice, the way the wind moved before storms. Time had taught her to be a shadow. She observed the golden world without ever touching it, like someone contemplating the sea through glass. Helena, her mother, always told her, "Serving is what keeps us safe, daughter." Clara had never questioned it, until she began to dream of something more. The stories she read secretly in the early hours of the morning showed her that there were other destinies, made of courage and not just silence. That morning, she heard the sound of distant laughter coming from the main porch. The boss, Henry, had just arrived with friends, young men with open shirts, arrogant eyes, and the confidence of those who had never known fear. Clara watched him for a moment, and something inside her stirred, as if she sensed a change. Helena appeared right behind, stern. "Don't look too much, Clara. These worlds don't mix." Clara nodded, but her gaze remained fixed on the sea, where Enrique was preparing to leave by speedboat. She didn't know it, but that look would be the beginning of everything. The wind picked up, blowing fiercely against the cliffs. The birds seemed restless, and even the waves crashed louder. Clara felt an inexplicable shiver, as if the sea were warning her of something no one else could hear. Inside the mansion, Roberto Faraz, the billionaire patriarch, was on the phone, irritated by a merger that threatened his businesses. For him, everything in life had a price, even loyalty. Little did he know that that day he would discover something that no amount of money could buy. The sun was at its highest point when Clara finished her chores. From the window, she watched the speedboat speed across the sea, cutting across the blue sky with dangerous speed. Enrique laughed, defying the waves, and the sound echoed like a song of freedom. But within minutes, the laughter turned to screams. A loud bang cut through the air, and the speedboat exploded in a sudden flash. Clara dropped the tray, which fell and shattered on the ground. Time seemed to stop, and without thinking, she ran. Descending the stairs, crossing the garden, and plunging into the choppy waves, Clara swam with all her might. The current was violent, the salt stung her eyes, but she didn't stop. In the midst of the chaos, she saw a body floating, and in a burst of pure courage, she swam towards it.
Do you believe that an act of courage can change destinies? Then subscribe to the channel now and activate the bell, because this story will prove that even the simplest heart can transform the impossible. Henrique was unconscious, his pale face contrasting with the blood that trickled from his forehead. Clara held him with difficulty, feeling the weight of his body and the force of the waves trying to separate them. "Please, hold on," she whispered, as she struggled against the sea that seemed to engulf them. With one last effort, she managed to drag him to the sand. Coughing and gasping for breath, she began to perform mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, thinking of nothing but keeping him alive. When he opened his eyes, for a moment he looked at her, and a reflection of gratitude shone before he fainted again. People started running along the beach. Guards, employees, shouts. Clara stepped back, her heart racing. She knew that if they saw her there, wet and desperate, they would ask questions she couldn't answer. So she disappeared through the back, returning to the mansion by a hidden path. Hours later, the place was in chaos. The press already knew about the accident, and Roberto Ferraz was shouting orders, demanding answers. "Who saved my son?" he repeated impatiently. No one knew. Clara, hidden in the maid's room, listened to everything in silence, her body still trembling and the smell of the sea still on her skin. Helena rushed in and found her huddled together. When Clara told her what she had done, her mother paled. "You shouldn't have gotten involved in this. If he finds out—" But Clara interrupted her. "I couldn't let him die, Mother." The words hung in her throat, heavy with fear and pride. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Henrique was slowly waking up. His memory was fragmented. The sound of the waves, the taste of salt, and a soft voice telling him not to give up. "Who was she?" he asked the nurse. No one knew the answer. Roberto appeared soon after, relieved, but cold. "You were lucky," he said without emotion. Henrique looked away, feeling the emptiness of the father who loved him only as an heir. Inside him, a new curiosity grew, to find the one who had saved him. Back at the mansion, Clara watched from afar as her family returned. She felt torn between relief and fear. She had saved a life, but perhaps she had condemned her own. When Helena turned off the lights that night, the sound of the sea still roared outside, like a warning, and in Clara's heart, a silent certainty was born. Destiny had not ended on that beach. It was only beginning. The sun was setting when Henrique returned to the mansion, his arm in a cast and his gaze distant. The house seemed different, quieter, as if everyone feared disturbing him. Roberto demanded discretion. No scandals, no public expressions of gratitude. For him, the shame of the accident was greater than the value of the life saved.
But Henry couldn't think of anything else. The face of the woman who had saved him appeared in flashes in his mind, hazy and bright, like a dream between delirium and reality. The memory of her voice calmed him, a soft, firm voice that seemed laden with love and fear at the same time. Clara, on the other side of the house, cleaned the windows as if trying to erase her own existence. Her hands trembled as she remembered the weight of his body, the cold of the sea, the moment she felt his heart begin to beat again. She had done the right thing, but now she feared what would come next. That night, during dinner, Roberto announced in his imposing voice, "Whoever saved my son will receive a fitting reward. I want that person found immediately." Enrique watched his father silently, feeling a mixture of gratitude and contempt. Elena heard the announcement and held her daughter's hand tightly. "You won't say anything, Clara. Promise." Clara simply nodded, though her chest burned with the urge to scream the truth. Being invisible now was a prison. In the following days, reporters surrounded the gates, curious about the mystery of the unknown heroine. The cameras expected a glamorous figure, someone worthy of the Ferraz surname. They would never imagine a maid in a simple uniform with a shy look. Enrique started asking questions. He searched through reports, talked to guards, even questioned fishermen in the bay. She must have left some trace, he insisted. Roberto, impatient, wanted to end the matter. Focus on the recovery, not on sentimental nonsense. But the search only grew stronger within Enrique. It was more than curiosity. It was a debt to destiny. He felt that this woman had changed something inside him, and the idea of never finding her ate away at him. Clara, for her part, avoided his gaze whenever she saw him in the hallways. Guilt and fear mingled with a strange tenderness. Every time Enrique smiled, something inside her broke. And so, the secret began to take shape, not just as a guarded mystery, but as a silent force drawing together two worlds destined to collide. The morning news featured headlines with Enrique's face and words in large letters. Who is the woman who saved the Ferraz heir? The whole country wanted to meet the heroine. Roberto, irritated, saw control of the narrative slipping through his fingers. Clara watched, hidden in the kitchen, her heart racing with each image. Elena abruptly turned off the television. This is going to end badly, Clara. I know Mr. Roberto. He doesn't forgive lies, not even those that save lives. Her daughter lowered her head, feeling the weight of fear become almost physical.
Meanwhile, Enrique walked through the garden with his arm in a cast, lost in thought. The sound of the sea drew him in, as if taking him back to that moment. And then he saw her, Clara, crouched among the rose bushes, cleaning the leaves. Her hair tied back, her gaze distracted. The same serenity he remembered. "Have you worked here a long time?" he asked suddenly. Clara froze. "Since I was a child, sir." Enrique smiled slightly. "Then perhaps you've seen me come back many times, and leave too quickly." She simply nodded, too afraid to look at him. In the following days, Enrique began to observe her discreetly. Something about her both unsettled and calmed him. There was a silent strength in every gesture, a sweetness he found in no one else in his world. Roberto noticed the change in his son and became suspicious. "You spend too much time with the servants, Enrique. That's not appropriate." The authoritative tone echoed through the house. Enrique responded only with silence. But inside, something within him was beginning to rebel. One night, as Clara was returning from work, she saw Enrique sitting on the garden steps, gazing at the sea. He said, without turning his face, "You know what's strange? Sometimes I have the feeling that I've already died, and someone brought me back." Clara stood motionless, her heart pounding. For a second, she wanted to tell everything, the dive, the despair, the touch of life returning. But the fear of the truth swallowed her courage. "Maybe it was luck," she murmured. Enrique looked at her and smiled, with a sincerity that disarmed her. Perhaps it was more than that. And in that instant, beneath the distant sound of the waves, something was born that neither of them could control. While the mansion slept, the sea wind blew strongly, carrying ancient secrets, and somewhere within those walls, the past began to awaken. The following days brought a strange kind of peace to the Ferraz mansion. Enrique, slowly recovering, spent hours walking among the gardens. Sometimes he would simply observe the sea, as if trying to decipher a secret that the ocean whispered only to him. Clara, for her part, did her best to avoid his gaze. Every time Enrique approached, her heart raced, as if the sea were about to swallow them both again. The memory of his touch, of the rescue, and of his eyes opening between the waves still haunted her. Enrique began to notice the small gestures, the way Clara lowered her gaze when he spoke, the delicate way she cared for the plants, the way she always seemed to be where he needed her to be, and yet distant, unreachable. One late afternoon, he saw her in the garden, gathering fallen flowers. "Do you like the sea?" he asked. She answered without thinking, "I do, but sometimes it scares me." Enrique smiled. "Funny, I think it saved me." The words hung in the air, full of hidden meaning. Meanwhile, Roberto watched his son with growing distrust. To him, emotions were weaknesses, useless distractions. "Enrique, focus on the company. The real world isn't made of emotions, it's made of power." The young man simply nodded, but his heart was elsewhere. Helena understood everything. She saw in her daughter's eyes the dangerous glimmer of hope, the kind that always brought pain to those who came from below. "Clara, don't fool yourself. You could lose more than you imagine." But Clara,
even frightened, couldn't deny what she felt. One night, Enrique went to the kitchen. Clara was washing dishes, humming softly. He stood there, watching. "You know, there's something about your voice. I think I've heard it before." She froze. The plate slipped from her hands and broke in two. "You must be mistaken, sir." He stepped forward, intrigued. "Maybe, but something about you reminds me of that day." The silence between them was more intense than any words. The ticking of a clock filled the void, marking the time of a secret about to be revealed. Clara looked away and said simply, "Some memories are like the sea, sir. The deeper you dive, the more dangerous it becomes." Then she left, leaving Enrique alone and even more fascinated by her. That night, as he tried to sleep, the sound of the sea seemed to whisper her name, and in Clara's heart a feeling grew that mixed love, fear, and guilt, a storm that was about to explode. Helena didn't sleep that night. Sitting on the edge of her bed, she held an old wooden box. Inside were yellowed letters, a photograph, and a gold necklace, memories of a time she was trying to bury. Her hands trembled when she heard footsteps in the hallway. It was Clara. "Mom, he's starting to remember." Helena closed her eyes. "I warned you, daughter. You shouldn't have gotten close." Clara sat down beside her, distressed. "But he's different. He's not like his father." Helena laughed bitterly. "They're all the same when power is at stake." The name Roberto Ferraz, it hung in the air like a shadow. Helena remembered every detail, the charm, the promises, the betrayal. Years ago, she believed in a forbidden love and paid the price alone. Clara was the fruit of that love, a secret, buried beneath the cold stones of the mansion.
"If he finds out who you are, it's all over," Helena said, tears welling in her eyes. "He doesn't forgive mistakes, and to him, you are the mistake he most fears seeing exposed." Clara felt the weight of the words like a chain binding her dreams. The following morning, the atmosphere in the house changed. Roberto ordered all the servants to gather in the main hall. He wanted to reinforce rules, to discipline rumors. His gaze lingered on Clara for a moment, and Helena felt her heart stop. Enrique watched from afar, his expression grim. Something about Clara deeply troubled him. When her father mentioned loyalty and gratitude, her gaze shifted, and he noticed. "She's hiding something," he thought. Later, he found her alone in the greenhouse. "Do you trust my father?" he asked suddenly. Clara looked at him firmly, and for the first time she didn't seem like a servant. "Trust is a luxury, sir, and luxury is something we cannot afford." Enrique remained silent. Her words echoed like a revelation. He began to see the world with different eyes, the weight of their differences, the chasm between them, and the strength she possessed even amidst servitude. Helena watched the two of them talking from the window. The memories returned like open wounds. She knew that Enrique's look was the same one Roberto had once given her, and, with a heavy heart, she understood. History was about to repeat itself. As the sun set over the sea, the sound of the waves seemed to promise storms, and Helena, for the first time, realized that the secret she had kept to protect her daughter might be exactly what would destroy her. The days had become lighter, at least on the surface. Enrique was already walking without his cast, and Clara, once again, tried to maintain the safe distance her mother had begged for. But fate seemed to mock the rules. Every time she ran away, chance brought them closer.
On a rainy morning, Clara was taking flowers to Roberto's office when Henrique appeared in the hallway. The sound of his footsteps made her heart race. "You again," he said, smiling. "It seems fate insists on putting us on the same path." Clara looked away, but Henrique held the flower she was carrying, a white rose, still damp from the rain. "May I keep it?" She hesitated, then nodded. He smiled and tucked the bud into his pocket, as if guarding a secret. In that simple gesture, something changed. His gaze, once merely curious, was now affectionate, protective. Clara felt her soul tremble, and at the same time a silent guilt settle in. Her heart knew that this feeling was as beautiful as it was impossible.
Helena noticed the change immediately. Every glance exchanged, every restrained smile was a threat. "Clara, you need to stay away from him. You can't repeat my mistakes." But Clara, tired of living in the shadows, replied firmly, "Perhaps it's too late." At night, the sound of rain hitting the windows mingled with the echo of the sea. Enrique walked to the greenhouse, where Clara tended to the plants. "Why do you always try to run away from me?" he asked. "Because you come from a world that destroys mine," she replied without hesitation. Enrique stepped forward, his gaze intense. "What if I want to change that? What if I want to be a part of your world?" Clara felt her chest burn. "You can't. You don't understand what's at stake." He smiled slightly. "Then make me understand." Before she could answer, Helena appeared in the doorway. "Enrique, your father is calling you." Her tone was cold, cutting. The moment vanished. Clara lowered her gaze, and he reluctantly left. Helena looked at her daughter, her eyes welling with tears. "Love is beautiful, Clara, until it becomes a sin." And for the first time, Clara realized that her mother was speaking with the pain of someone who had once loved the same man who now threatened her daughter's heart. As the rain subsided, the silence of the night seemed to hold both a promise and a curse. Outside, the sea roared as if announcing that nothing would remain hidden for long. The following morning, the mansion received an unexpected visitor, Mrs. Lucia. The former housekeeper, who had worked there years before, carried the weight of memories in her eyes and a letter for Helena in her hands. Their reunion was silent, a restrained embrace full of unspoken secrets. "I thought you'd never come back," Helena said. Lucia smiled bitterly. "Some ghosts only rest when the truth comes out." Clara watched from afar, intrigued, unaware that this woman held the keys to a forbidden past. Later, when she was alone, Lucia walked down the main hallway and stopped in front of a painting, a portrait of a younger Roberto Ferraz. Her eyes filled with tears. "Nothing has changed. He still lives surrounded by gold and lies." Clara approached, curious. "You knew him well, didn't you?" Lucia turned slowly, examining the young woman's face. "More than you should, girl. And from what I see, you do too." Clara blushed, not understanding the true meaning of those words. Lucia noticed the necklace around Clara's neck, a small gold pendant with initials, RF, recorded. She stood motionless. "Where did you get that?" Clara replied innocently, "It belonged to my mother. She never told me who it belonged to." Her gaze turned to astonishment.
That night, Lucia secretly sought out Helena. "You didn't tell her, did you?" Helena closed her eyes. "I promised him I would never tell, and she's all I have left." Lucia sighed. "But the past always catches up with you, Helena, and it has already begun to do so." Meanwhile, Enrique was trying to understand why Clara fascinated him so much. Everything about her seemed to have a hidden meaning. The necklace, the silences, the gaze that seemed to carry secrets he couldn't decipher. At dinner, Roberto inquired about Lucia's visit. The mere mention of her name was enough to make him tense. "She shouldn't have come back here," he murmured. Enrique noticed his discomfort and asked, "Why?" Roberto simply replied, "Some people belong to the past, and that's where they should stay." But the past did not obey orders. In the hallway, Lucia watched father and son talking and whispered to herself, "Blood always finds its way back." On the other side of the wall, Clara heard, and an inexplicable chill ran through her body. Fate, at last, had begun to open the doors of secrecy, and no force, not even fear, would be able to close them again. The following weeks were marked by a silent tension. Doña Lucia's presence rekindled memories that Roberto Ferraz had struggled to erase. He avoided crossing paths with Helena, but felt her gaze in every corner of the mansion, a vivid reminder of the mistake he had tried to hide for 22 years. One morning, while the employees were cleaning the office, Clara was called by Roberto. Her heart raced. She had never been alone with her boss. He was standing by the window, with an envelope in his hands. "You were born here, weren't you?" he asked coldly. "Yes, sir," she replied in a trembling voice. "How long has your mother worked for me?" "Since before I was born." Roberto nodded slowly, looking at her with something between curiosity and suspicion. "Interesting. There's something about you that's familiar to me." Clara maintained her composure, but inside panic grew. Every word he spoke sounded like a threat. "My mother was always loyal to her family, sir," she ventured. Roberto smiled humorlessly. Loyalty, a word many use, but few understand. After she left, Roberto opened the envelope and looked at the photo he had kept for years. Helena, young, smiling, with a baby in her arms. The same necklace hung around the child's neck. He felt his blood run cold, the pendant with the initials R.F. Meanwhile, Lucia watched everything from afar. She knew the truth was about to come out, and the guilt of keeping it hidden weighed more heavily on her each day. "It's going to hurt, Helena, but maybe this is the only way to set you free."
Helena wept silently. "He's going to hate her, Lucia, just like he hated me." But Lucia replied firmly, "Or perhaps he'll finally see what he's lost." The following morning, Roberto called his lawyer and ordered an investigation into Helena and Clara's past. The results came quickly, and with them the confirmation he so feared. Clara was his daughter, the fruit of the forbidden love he traded for power and convenience. The billionaire sat in silence, the weight of regret finally catching up with him. "My blood, under my own roof, serving coffee!" Shame burned inside him, but pride, the same pride that had always guided his decisions, began to grow even stronger. He didn't know if he wanted to fix the past or erase the evidence of its existence. And, as he pondered, a golden invitation lay on his desk, the gala dinner that would bring together the entire elite. It would be there, before everyone, that the truth would be revealed. The Ferraz mansion was in full swing. Lights everywhere, laughter, clinking bowls, musicians playing in the garden. The annual gala dinner was the most anticipated event of the season, and, ironically, the stage chosen by fate to reveal everything that had been hidden. Clara and Helena worked discreetly among the guests. The daughter's simple dress contrasted with the glitter of the jewels and expensive dresses. But Enrique, on the other side of the room, barely saw the other women. His eyes sought only one, the one who had saved him, the one who now made his heart beat with guilt and desire. Donna Lucia watched everything in silence, her face tense. She knew Roberto was planning something. With each toast, each fake smile, the air grew heavier. until, near the end of dinner, the billionaire stood up and asked for silence. "Today, in addition to celebrating our family's success, I want to talk about loyalty and truth," she began. Her voice echoed in the hall. Clara stopped serving for a moment. Helena, in the back, felt her blood run cold. Roberto turned slowly toward them. "For years, I kept people in this house who seemed loyal, people who hid lies, lies that need to be revealed today." The murmur among the guests grew. Lucia stood up, distressed. "Roberto, don't do this," she whispered. He ignored her. "Helena, come here." The room fell silent. Everyone watched as she walked, trembling. Roberto then held up the old photograph. "This is proof of the betrayal, proof that the woman who served in this house also deceived me." "Enough, Roberto," Lucia shouted, but it was too late. He threw the photo on the table, and everyone could see young Helena with a baby in her arms, Clara. "This girl," he continued, pointing, "is the result of a mistake that now weighs heavily on the Ferraz name."
The room erupted in murmurs. Clara stood motionless, tears streaming down her face. Henrique looked at his father, horrified. "Are you saying that she—" Roberto confirmed with his eyes. The floor seemed to disappear beneath everyone's feet. Helena fell to her knees. "I tried to protect you, Clara. I swear I tried." But Clara took a step forward, her gaze fixed on the man who was humiliating her in front of everyone. "A mistake, Mr. Roberto? You call a life a mistake?" The billionaire hesitated. No one dared to breathe. Clara, her voice firm, yet broken, concluded, "If to love is to betray, then you have betrayed first. Truth, love, and yourself." The silence that followed was deafening. Henrique stood up and left the room without saying a word. Roberto, pale, looked at his daughter and saw, for the first time, the reflection of his own guilt, alive, standing, and stronger than him. The news spread like wildfire. "Billionaire Roberto Ferraz has an illegitimate daughter with a former employee." The headlines filled newspapers, websites, and screens. The Ferraz empire, built on reputation and control, was beginning to crumble. The mansion, once a symbol of power, was now the epicenter of shame. Helena woke up that morning to the sound of cameras outside the property. Helicopters were flying over the property. Helena was hurriedly packing her bags, her face etched with despair. "We need to leave, daughter, now." Henrique, locked in his room, didn't speak to anyone. His father's words echoed in his mind, each one like a wound. His daughter? The idea seemed impossible, cruel. But the memory of the necklace, the resemblance, the voice, it all made too much sense. Roberto, isolated in his office, ignored the lawyer's calls and pleas. The company's stock was plummeting, partners were drifting away, and his image as an exemplary man was crumbling. Looking in the mirror, he saw a stranger, someone who had traded love for pride and was now losing both. In the garden, Clara paused for a moment before leaving. She looked at the sea, the same sea that had changed her destiny. "It took everything from me, and yet I saved it," she thought. Helena approached, touching her shoulder. "You did what was right, daughter, and that's what sets you apart from him." The two left through the back door like thieves fleeing their own history. No employee dared to say goodbye, some out of fear, others out of shame. But in the eyes of some, Clara saw silent respect. Henrique watched them through the window, his heart torn between loyalty to his father and gratitude for the woman who had saved him. He wanted to run after them, but the weight of his confusion kept him still. "Who am I in the midst of all this?" he murmured. That night,
The mansion was plunged into darkness. Roberto sat in the empty office, holding Clara's necklace in his hands. The pendant bore the initials R.F. It reflected the dim light of the lampshade, a cruel symbol of what he had tried to hide and what now haunted him. The most powerful man in the city realized he could buy anything except forgiveness, and for the first time, he wept silently. Meanwhile, Clara and Elena walked along the deserted road, with only a suitcase and the sea in the distance. The cold wind cut their faces, but Clara's heart was strong. She knew that, even stripped of everything, she still possessed the truth, and that made her free. The following weeks were hard. Clara and Elena settled into a small boarding house near the center. Elena, dejected, worked washing clothes. Clara, determined to start over, sought employment at a community school. There, she found something she had never had in the mansion: peace. The children adored her. Clara taught tenderly, telling stories about courage, hope, and forgiveness, without revealing that she was talking about herself. Gradually, the sparkle returned to her eyes, even with the weight of the invisible scars. Henry, on the other hand, sank into silence. He didn't speak to his father, didn't leave the house, didn't answer calls. He spent hours staring at the same sea that had almost taken him and now reminded him of the woman who had given him his life back. One day, he found Roberto's box of old mail. Among the letters was a handwritten letter that had never been sent. He recognized Elena's handwriting. If one day you feel remorse, remember that the love you rejected still lives, even if hidden. Henry read it and felt his heart clench. He decided to look for them, not to apologize on behalf of his father, but to understand the truth that had always been hidden. He went to the coastal town, asking from door to door, until he found the school where Clara taught. When he saw her, surrounded by children, with a gentle and genuine smile, he understood what nobility truly meant. It wasn't a title, nor money. It was the courage to move forward, even when the world tried to erase her name. Clara watched him approach, surprised. Her heart beat fast, but her eyes were serene. "Why did you come, Enrique?" He replied without hesitation, "Because I needed to truly thank you, and because I want to learn from you what my father never taught me." Elena watched from a distance, tears in her eyes. She finally saw what she had always wanted: reconciliation with destiny. Not all was lost.
That late afternoon, the three walked together to the sea. The sun was setting, painting the horizon orange and gold. The silence between them spoke louder than any words. A new beginning was being born, not about wealth, but about redemption. And for the first time, Clara felt that the world, even in its cruelty, could still be beautiful. Clara's story returned to the headlines with force. Newspapers and sensationalist programs tried to turn her pain into a spectacle. "The billionaire's forgotten daughter," the headlines proclaimed. Helena cried every time she saw her daughter's name on the screen. But Clara was tired of running away. It was time to face the world. With the help of the teacher from the school, she agreed to participate in a press conference. "Are you sure?" Helena asked, anxiously. Clara calmly replied, "If the name Faraz took everything from me, let it now serve to show the truth." The auditorium was packed. Reporters, cameras, flashes. In the back of the room, discreetly, Enrique observed. Roberto, at home, watched on television, his eyes fixed on the screen, for the first time, afraid of what he was about to hear. Clara stepped onto the stage with a serene posture.
but her hands trembled. She took a deep breath and began, "Throughout my life, I have been taught to serve, to be silent, to obey. But no one can ask for silence from someone who carries the truth within their heart." The cameras turned completely to her. "I didn't ask to be born with the name Faraz, but I did ask and fight to be seen as someone who feels, dreams, and loves. The mistake wasn't my birth. The mistake was the pride of those who hid me." A reporter interrupted. "Do you intend to claim part of the inheritance?" Clara smiled, tenderly and firmly. "No. What I want cannot be bought. I want my mother to be respected, and for people to understand that dignity is priceless." As she spoke, on the other side of town, Roberto sank into his armchair. Each word was a blow, but also a liberation. For the first time, he saw the strength he had ignored for so long. Enrique, overcome with emotion, felt tears in his eyes. When Clara finished, the auditorium erupted in applause. For the first time, she was being heard. Not as a maid, not as a secret, but as a woman. As she left, she saw Enrique at the door. "You spoke for all of us," he said. Clara smiled, tired but light. "I spoke for myself, and for her." She looked at the necklace around her neck, the same one that had once symbolized shame. Now it was the emblem of her freedom. And somewhere in the Faraz mansion, Roberto stood up, wiping away tears. "It's time," he murmured. He grabbed his coat and left, in search of the daughter he himself had banished from his own life.
The encounter happened days later. Clara was at school, organizing books, when she heard his voice behind her. "Clara." The name sounded different, not like an order, but like a request. She turned slowly. Roberto Ferraz, the most feared man in the city, now seemed small before her. For a moment, no one spoke. The silence was heavy, laden with everything that had never been said. He took a step forward, his hands trembling. "I saw what you said, and I realized how wrong I was. I wanted to erase you, but I only made you shine brighter." Clara maintained a steady gaze. "You owe me nothing, only the truth. I just wanted to understand why you denied us so much." Roberto took a deep breath. "Because I was a coward. I thought power would protect me from shame, but I lost everything, and the worst loss was you." Helena appeared at the door, surprised. "What are you doing here, Roberto?" He looked at her with a mixture of regret and tenderness. "I came to ask for forgiveness from both of you. You were the only ones who loved me without wanting anything in return, and I destroyed everything." Tears came uncontrollably. Clara watched him, and for the first time saw the man behind the name, the father he could have been, the human being stripped of pride. "I can't erase what he did, but I can choose not to carry hatred." Roberto knelt down, an unthinkable gesture for someone like him. "I don't deserve forgiveness, but I need to ask for it." Helena helped him to his feet, moved. "The pain you caused us was great, Roberto, but perhaps, finally, it served a purpose." Enrique arrived soon after, summoned by Clara. Upon seeing his father, he stopped, unsure what to say. Roberto looked at him and in a low voice confessed, "The strength I wanted you to have, it was always within them." Father and son embraced for the first time without masks, without inheritances, without promises. Just imperfect men trying to be better. Helena and Clara joined them, and the embrace of the four seemed to close a cycle of decades of silence. Outside, the sea roared, as if bearing witness to forgiveness. The wind carried the sound of the waves mixed with something new, peace. And gazing at the horizon, Clara whispered, "The truth hurt, but it was what set us free." 2 years had passed since that day. The Ferraz mansion was still standing, but the house was no longer the same. The gates, once closed, now opened to children, laughter, and new stories. Clara had transformed the old party hall into a foundation dedicated to the education and support of vulnerable youth.
The name on the gate was simple, Instituto Luz do Mar, a tribute to the day the sea took everything from her and, at the same time, gave her back her life. There, Clara taught that courage is not born from wealth, but from the truth we carry in our hearts. Elena managed the place with the serenity of someone who had finally found purpose. Each child who arrived there saw in her the figure of a mother. The old pain had become strength, the silence, wisdom. She and Roberto spoke to each other with respect, without resentment, united by a regret transformed into learning. Enrique, now distanced from his father's business, dedicated himself to social projects with Clara. There was no longer any confusion in his feelings. There was affection, friendship, and admiration. "You saved me twice," he once said, "from death and from myself." Clara smiled. "Then it was fair. You taught me that not all power destroys. Some can rebuild." Roberto grew old peacefully. He visited the Institute every month, walking among the children as if seeking redemption in each smile. He gave, but never flaunted it. He had finally learned that love cannot be bought. It is earned, one gesture at a time. One afternoon, a reporter visited the place to do a story. Young and curious, he asked Clara, "Do you believe that forgiveness really changes people?" She replied, looking at the sea, "Forgiveness doesn't change the past, but it gives us the courage to look at it without fear." When the reporter turned off the camera, he handed her an envelope. "I found this in the old Ferraz company files. I think it belongs to you." Clara opened it and saw a photo. Elena and Roberto, young, laughing by the sea, the same day she was conceived. On the back, a handwritten phrase, "The love we hide will one day resurface." She tucked the photo into her necklace and smiled. The wind blew gently from the sea, as if time were blessing her. In the distance, children ran along the sand, and Elena waved from the balcony. Clara gazed at the horizon and thought about everything she had lived through, the fear, the pain, the courage, the truth. She had lost her name, her home, her childhood, but she had found something much greater, who she truly was. And as the sun slowly set over the golden sea, she murmured, "Some secrets destroy us, but others teach us how to live." The sound of the waves echoed back, and in that instant, the past finally rested. She was born invisible, saved a life, and ended up saving her own soul. If this story touched you, imagine how many more are yet to come. Sign up now and experience every emotion with me, because sometimes the next story could be yours.